5 decades. Tonight's inductees, athletes, coaches, and teams represent 5 decades of athletic achievement at Penn Academy. This class has set standards that current athletes, coaches, and teams strive for. The PYA Athletic Hall of Fame focuses on recognizing excellence and connecting the past, present, and future of Mustang athletics. Tonight, we recognize 2 athletes, 1 coach, and 2 teams that have paved the way for current and future PYA athletes, coaches, and teams, and have set a tone for the teams that have followed.
As a member of the 2022 Mustang Wrestling Team, congratulations to Melvin Brinson. Mr. Brinson was a 1962 graduate of Penn Academy. Mr. Brinson was a 3-sport athlete as a member of the football, wrestling, and track and field teams. A co-captain of the football team, Brinson was a standout running back for the Mustangs. On the mat, Mr. Brinson was undefeated for over 4 years of wrestling and was a 4-time Finger Lakes League and Section 5 champion. He set standard for future PYA athletes through his achievement, his commitment to athletics, and through his devotion to his teammates.
As a Penn girls soccer coach and former player, congratulations, Coach Sue Goot. Coach Goot was one of the first coaches for girls athletics at Penn Academy. She coached cheerleading in the 1960s and 70s and started coaching soccer in the early 70s. Her soccer teams were league champs in 1977, 1984, and in their undefeated 1988 regular season. Coach Goot was awarded the Finger Lakes Coach of the Year after that undefeated 1988 season. She was a 30-year member of the PYA football chain gang, and she has remained active in the school and community since her retirement from the district. Coach Goot set a standard for future coaches by her continuous positive approach to coaching. Her enthusiasm and energy were contagious. If a player came to practice struggling with something or was in a bad mood, her uplifting words changed their state of mind by the time they were done. Her athletes loved playing for her. She continues to be an inspiration for many people as she is the definition of a physically active person. I know I can safely say on behalf of my former teammates and those who came before us that she has left a huge mark on girls athletics at Penn Academy, and we were grateful to have the opportunity to play for her.
As a current Mustangs lacrosse player, congratulations to Jason Page, a 1990 graduate. Mr. Page was a 2-sport athlete playing football and lacrosse. Page played offensive and defensive end for the Mustangs, where he was a first-team All-League selection. In lacrosse, he was a U.S. Lacrosse All-American and multi-year All-League performer. He represented Penn in the U.S. North and South game and graduated as the all-time leading scorer at Penn. He continued his success at Washington College, where he was a 3-time All-American and is a member of their Hall of Fame. He has given back to the sport of lacrosse as the Keuka College's men's lacrosse head coach and through his continuous support of PYA lacrosse. Coach Page set the standard for future PYA athletes by excelling at the high school and college level and by following his passion into coaching lacrosse.
On behalf of the 2023 Varsity Girls Softball Team, congratulations to the 1989 Varsity Girls Softball Team. The undefeated softball team dominated opponents en route to their 24-0 record. Coach Manley, the Finger Lakes Coach of the Year, led the Mustangs to 4 consecutive Finger Lakes Eastern Division titles, including the 1989 season.
The team was known for its great defense, stellar pitching, and a relentless offense. The team capped off their season with a 19-3 rout of Livonia in the sectional championship game, bringing home the program's first sectional title. An unprecedented 8 players were named Finger Lakes All-Stars, including 6 first-team selections.
The 1989 team set a standard of excellence that current and future athletes strive for.
On behalf of the 2022-2023 Varsity Boys Basketball Team, congratulations to the 2005-2006 Boys Basketball Team.
The team's regular season was considered average, with losses to several high-powered teams. The postseason was a different story. The Mustangs played the role of underdogs with victories over Waterloo after losing to them by 17 points only a week prior. Cornell, who came into the game with a 20-1 record, then School of the Arts, who were fresh off a victory over state-ranked Palmac.
Following the sectional championship win over the School of the Arts, the PYA defense held Bishop Kearney to 45 points as they beat the Kings to win the state tournament play-in game.
The 2005-2006 team showed us that there is a power in hope and belief, and that grit and determination are keys to success.
As we span the 50-plus years in tonight's induction, take time to reflect on the legacy left by the athletes, coaches, and teams of the class of 2022. Each of the inductees left a mark in their own way, directing current and future athletes, teams, and coaches towards success.
All right, let's get started. Our first presenter is a member of 5 Halls of Fame, including our own in 2014. He's a member of the Wisconsin Wrestling in 1983, Winona State in 2002, U.S. Wrestling in 2002, and Fond du Lac High School in Wisconsin in 2010. He wrestled here at Penn Yan for 3 years on the varsity and garnered 3 Finger Lakes championships and Section 5 championship in 1960. His career record was 84 wins and 3 losses. Please give a warm welcome to my friend, Mr. Larry Marchand.
I guess you nailed it. It's 62 years ago, I graduated from Penn Yan Academy. It was 62 years ago that I met Melvin Brinson. He was a younger wrestler on the team with my brother Dick, and so it's just a thrill to see Melvin Brinson inducted into the Hall of Fame. First of all, I want to thank the Penn Yan Academy Athletic Hall of Fame Committee, because we know it's a big job, a lot of work, and it takes a lot of time to select quality inductees into this prestigious Hall of Fame. It's an honor for me to present Melvin posthumously into the distinguished Penn Yan Academy Athletic Hall of Fame. Melvin was a father of 5 boys and 2 girls. We had Daryl. Some of them are here, so if you would, I love Melvin so much. I really would love to have you stand so we could all have you all standing and give you a round of applause, because he was a wonderful man. Melvin Jr., Brandon, Deborah, Kyle, they were all Melvin's children, and his wife Florida still is living in Florida. And also we have here Shannon Sims. We also have Melvin Brinson's son. We also have Freddie Johnson, Shannon Johnson, Kevin Brinson, Ivy Brinson Jr., Diane Brinson, Marty, and Keisha Brinson as well. Would you please stand? Let's give them all a big hand. Some of them came from a long ways to be here. Now let me tell you about Melvin. Melvin, as you heard earlier, was a 3-sport letterman: football, wrestling, and track. Winning 12 letters in a high school is quite an accomplishment. Melvin also was he ran on the track and field team, and there's a lot of stories about Melvin, but he was extremely fast and gifted in the track and field area as well. But wrestling is one where I think Melvin really excelled, and of course, I'm a little prejudiced, of course, but you know, I've been around wrestling a long time, since I was here in Penn Yan, coaching in Wisconsin and Minnesota, and I've known a lot of athletes, but I don't see anyone that has the accomplishments that Melvin had. And I coached at the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. I recruited a lot of athletes. His accomplishments were exceptional. And the thing you have to consider is, I remember the sectional tournament was in Rochester. And at that time, when we wrestled in the 60s, wrestling had no divisions. It was just a one-class system. So we wrestled in Rochester for the sectional championship. My brother Dick started off with the Rochester East and got a pin at the sectional finals. Then he put the pressure on this old guy because I'm the senior, right? So I had no choice to give everything I had. And I wound up getting the pin, and then Melvin came over to both of us. And he looked us straight in the eyes and says, "You guys put a lot of stress on me, but I'm gonna do it." And he had to wrestle the defending sectional champion. And he won 3-0. But the important thing there, I wrestled Rochester East, my brother Dick wrestled Rochester East, and Melvin had to wrestle Rochester Monroe High School. So we were wrestling the biggest schools around. But the important thing is in 1960, Penn Yan Academy won the sectional championship with 3 champions. And I don't know if that's been accomplished since, but it was really an honor for us to do that. Melvin was quite an athlete. The one thing about Melvin I always recognize is that he was always so relaxed. And those of you that play sports, when you got an athlete that's always relaxed, and that's combined with that fast twitch muscle, as a wrestler, you know you got trouble. And he was so explosive and so quick. The one thing I wanted to share something with you, though. This is my brother Dick and I probably knew him very, very well. But he has one unrecognized accomplishment and talent that it's been unrecognized for years, but only the wrestling teammates knew this. He was one hell of a singer in the shower. I'm telling you, if he didn't want to do athletics, he could have sang as long as was in the shower. But he had a real great voice, he really did, and we were very, very impressed with him. We thank all of Melvin's relatives and family for being here. We wish Melvin was here in person, but I'm sure that Melvin is watching from above. We'd like to thank the Penn Yan Academy Hall of Fame for putting Melvin's reputation and his name in the Hall of Fame, because this way, Melvin, your legacy will live on. Melvin Jr., please. Would you please come on up? Melvin, I want to say that I'm presenting you this a big heart, and we want you to know, and the Brinson family to know, that Melvin's legacy will live on in the Penn Yan Academy Hall of Fame.
Thank you, everyone. Someone told me to write down something if I spoke, because I wouldn't know what to say. But trust me, with my father, you wouldn't have to write down anything. I got 100 stories and not enough time to tell them. But this is a great honor. It really is. It's such an honor to me to be able to do this for my father. I said I wasn't going to cry, so I'm going to try to stay strong. He was not just, he was a Hall of Famer. As an athlete, told me many stories. About his wrestling and his football. He sat in the garage and had so many stories, and he told each yard on the Penn Yan football field, he's told me a story about. Trust me, I'm tell you. But most of all, he wasn't just a Hall of Famer in just sporting, but wrestling and football. As a person, he was a Hall of Famer. Wonderful guy. Best father you could ever have. Best person you could ever want to know. Great charisma, great guy. And that's why this is such an honor to do this for my father. And I really appreciate this. And I know he's looking down and probably saying, son, just say it and take it and get off the stage. That's my father. He was tough. But this really is an honor for me and for my family to be here to see me accept this reward for me. And I thank you guys so much.
All right, our next inductee will have 3 presenters. 2 of them were standout players for our coach. Both had great athletic careers here at Penn Yan Academy. Sue Mashevsky-Baker was a 4-sport athlete with 2 years of varsity basketball, 3 years of varsity softball, 3 years of varsity volleyball, and 3 years of varsity soccer. Sally Brennan Prather played 4 years of varsity soccer, 3 years of varsity basketball, 2 years of varsity volleyball, 3 years of varsity track, and 1 year of varsity softball. Sally was also, she told me, the ball girl when she was in elementary school for Coach Goop, one of the ball girls. So she's known her for quite some time. Margie Champlin graduated from Penn Yan Academy in 1970 before Title IX and the advent of girls' sports in school. She's known our inductee. I did a little math here, and I don't think I'm wrong, but she'll correct me if I am. Margie will always correct me. But I think she's known our inductee for better than 60 years. She plays golf with our inductee for close to 30 years. And here are the 3 ladies, Margie Champlin, Sally Brennan Prather, and Sue Mashevsky-Baker. Ladies.
I'd like to thank the committee for accepting my nomination to induct Coach Sue Goop into the Penn Yan Academy Hall of Fame. I graduated in 1972, which was the same year that Title IX became effective. So I was not coached by Sue, but I did have her in 5th grade. Sue has remained active in her athletics since her retirement, and I have had the pleasure to call her my mentor, friend, competitor, and teammate in playing golf. She has been a member of Lakeside for over 50 years and has had various levels of club champion 16 times, and has had 5 hole-in-ones. She still competes in tournaments, and most recently, the Finger Lakes Senior Tournament held at Sodas Bay. A couple of weeks later, Sue said to me, "Can you believe there was only one other person older than me? How can that be? I feel so young." Sue, I hope you live every day feeling so young.
Thanks, Margie. It's such an honor to be part of Ms. Goop's Hall of Fame induction. We're a room full of parents, athletes, and coaches, and we all know the role a coach can play during an athlete's formative years, and how lucky we are when those lessons and connections last into your adult life. I'm one of those lucky athletes who had the chance to participate during Coach Goop's soccer coaching career. First as a ball girl, as Tiger mentioned, for my sister's team. Then as a kickboard, sorry Tiger. Then as a kickboard junkie at the fields, hanging around during any practice, and finally as a midfielder for 4 years, backed up by one of the best sweepers here beside me, Sue. The lessons learned and friendships made on that lopsided field behind the football field have stayed with me to this day. Thank you, Ms. Goop. So let me share a few statistics about Ms. Goop. She started coaching in 1962, as Kiki shared with us. At that time, the only sport open to women was cheerleading. And yes, I called it a sport. Sue was the head coach at PYA from 1962 to 1972, and now we know where she gets her team spirit. I never knew this particular stat because we were fortunate to have more options when we entered high school. I took for granted that women could play any sport they wanted to. And this was due to groundbreaking women like Coach Goop that paved a path for women's sports. As soon as Title IX was passed, she started a soccer program for women and coached it from 1970 to 1995. That's 25 years for those of you doing the math. Just think of how many women had the good fortune to play for Coach Goop. I see some of you in the audience today. Please raise your hand if you were coached by Miss Goop. Look at all the hands going up, Sue. That's awesome. She also led the bowling team for a few years, and I think we have some bowlers in the room too. But it was her soccer coaching career that defined her as a successful and outstanding coach in the Finger Lakes. In addition to numerous winning seasons, her Mustang teams were league champs in 1977, 1984, and 1988. Her 1988 season went undefeated and garnered Miss Goop the much-deserved title of Coach of the Year. Her success on the field over 25 years as a coach, multitude of players recognized in all league awards, and her lasting impact as a coach on her players is why she's being recognized in the Penn Yan Academy Sports Hall of Fame. If you were one of over 400 women lucky enough, I think I did the math right, lucky enough to be coached by Miss Goop, you learned how to be a soccer player that was confident, positive, always positive, a team player, a leader, a friend, and above all, you learned how to do it with a smile. And usually lots of laughter, probably after hearing one of her famous expressions like, "You turkey." I actually think she coined the phrase, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take," because I heard "take the shot" so many times. We worked hard come rain or shine. It was fun being part of Miss Goop's team, especially when we beat Victor High School. We learned not only how to win, but how to stay strong in the face of adversity, which usually came in the form of muddy or snow-covered fields. These are all life lessons that can be translated on and off the field. Most of all, for those of you that played for her, you know we learned how to be tenacious. That was Coach Goop's go-to expression, tenacious. Keeping a firm hold, not readily relinquishing a position, being very determined, and above all, persistence on and off the field. Congratulations, Coach Goop. Now I'm going to turn it over to number 22, Sue, to wrap us up.
Hello. Hi, get the stick varnish. In the summation of Miss Goop, the most genuine human being I've ever met, and the privilege of having as a coach at the school. A mentor in life, and now on the golf course. Miss Goop will always be Miss Goop. Someone we look for her infectious smile, personality, and a joy for life. She did all she could for us as athletes, making sure we were freshly cut oranges at every halftime. And it didn't matter if it was us or Sally and I had older sisters, they also had one too. She's a woman whose passion for life is evident. Anyone that had the fortune to meet her, knowing or praying for her, should consider themselves lucky. Thank you, Ms. Goop, for your dedication to your athletes and continued infectious life you live. You are beyond deserving of this wonderful honor. So if you'd like to come up, we can present you.
How can I follow that? In the immortal words of Jackie Gleason, how sweet it is. I thank the committee, these girls, John Manley, for introducing me, for keeping me abreast of what was going on, telling me I made it. It makes my heart feel good. When I came here in 1962, Lord, that's a long time ago, there was nothing for the girls. Every girl in high school signed up for cheerleading. Tryouts went for hours. There were tears. It was brutal. Yeah, it was tough. It was the dark ages of women's sports, and then along came Title IX. Some of the men coaches were sort of aghast. We have to share the fields, the gym, the courts with girls. Ha, they sure did. I can still remember walking out of the bottom of the elementary school, my bag of soccer balls over my shoulder in 1970, saying, I wonder if anybody will come. And boy, did they come. And they came, and they came, and they came. It was just wonderful. It was an explosion. Girls finally could do everything. And boy, did they love it. I saw a lot of firsts. The first time my kids had a number on their back. The first time we had a schedule. The first time we went to sectionals. It was just fun. I was here I thank this village of Penyan for embracing me. I'm not even Danish, and I've only been here 60 years, but they still treat me like one of them. This is the icing on the top of my already gourmet life. So, go Mustangs. Oh, I can't thank you all enough. Makes my heart feel good. Thank you.
Would Vanessa Martinez and Morgan Anderson please come to the podium for a special presentation of the Scoop?
Good evening. My name is Morgan Anderson. I'm a senior member of the girls varsity soccer team and the Lady Mustang strength training program. This year, my co-leader in both soccer and LMSD, Vanessa Martinez, and I have had the pleasure of listening to Coach Gu share her experience as a coach during the decade prior to the Title IX legislation. To give us a better understanding of what it was like to be a coach and an athlete during that time period, and a deeper appreciation for the opportunities that we have today. Each summer, the LMST leaders choose to design the words for our signature tank tops. This year, we chose the phrase "Pass the Torch" to celebrate 50 years of women's athletics. On the bottom of our tank is #BBO, which stands for the best version of ourselves. Thank you, Coach Gu, for taking the time to share your story. It is an honor to present our signature LMST tank top to you tonight.
I went to one of the Sugu soccer, I went to many soccer games for Sugu over the years she was coaching, but I can still remember the one time they were up in Lions, playing Lions, and one of our girls collided with one of the girls from Lions, and Miss Gooten says, "Mr. Carvey, check her out. She's all right, she's got a concussion." And of course I looked at her and did the old cover up the eye thing, and I said, "No, she's good to go. She had a concussion." But those are the old days. Things were done differently at that time. Our next presenter is not new to this podium. He's been involved with the Mustang lacrosse program for over 30 years as either an assistant or a current position as head coach. As a coach, he's been part of 26 Section 5 championships and has won Western Regionals and the state championship. He currently is the Dean of Students at Penyan Middle School. Please welcome back to the podium Mr. Brian Hobart.
I'd first like to start by congratulating the other inductees and thanking the Hall of Fame committee for all their hard work that they put into this event. Tonight is my pleasure to not only induct a truly great lacrosse player, but a truly great friend of mine that I consider myself lucky to have in my life. Growing up, when I was in high school, lacrosse was just starting to gain a bit of a foothold in the late 80s. And there were a group of guys that were the first ones that kind of started playing lacrosse more than just, you know, in the spring. And there was always this kid that was a few years younger than us hanging around, that always had a stick in his hand, that always wanted to be involved, and that was Jay. In a time where there were a lot of good lacrosse players here, Jason was probably the first true lacrosse player. He always had the stick in his hand. He was tremendously skilled at what he did. In a time where, when it rained and muddy, the rest of us threw our sticks, you know, our helmet and gloves on the end of our stick. Jay took his home and blew dry his gloves and put the fan on his equipment and truly took care of things like no one had previously in Penn Yan. To watch him play, he was not the biggest guy. He was definitely not the fastest guy, but he might have been the toughest guy. And his ability to perform at any level, regardless of competition, was something that really started to lay a few more of those bricks for the Penn Yan lacrosse program and helped with that progression to where it is today. He graduated here as the all-time leading scorer and a high school All-American. He participated in the prestigious North-South High School All-Star game that only 30 players around the country get chosen to play in. He continued his college career at Washington College in Chestertown, Maryland, where Jay became a 3-time All-American. He played 3 years in Washington College and graduated there as their all-time leading goal scorer, despite having only played 3 of the 4 years he could have. All right? Again, made the prestigious North-South All-Star game at the collegiate level. He remains one of the most decorated lacrosse players in Penn Yan history. We were fortunate enough that after a few years of him in the business world, Jay returned locally to be the head coach at Keuka College. He took a struggling program there and led them to conference championships and an NCAA tournament appearance. His connection to Penn Yan continued at Keuka as he had probably around 20 Penn Yan alumni play for him at Keuka. He had a soft spot for the Penn Yan kids who maybe didn't have as much, and there's a number of guys that can thank Jason for getting them a college education as he brought them to Keuka and looked after them. He continued to contribute to the Penn Yan program very quietly behind the scenes. He was always with us at our summer box program and at camps. But countless times Jay would, you know, he'd drop off a stick, leave it in my truck and say, hey, if there's a kid that needs a stick, make sure he's got a stick. You know? And his kindness has gone a long way in continuing to build our program. It is my great pleasure to induct him here tonight. Jason Page.
It's been a long time since I've been in this room. It's an honor and a privilege to be here tonight, and I want to thank the committee and I want to congratulate the fellow coaches and athletes that are being honored here as well. For me, as I have come back to this community, raising my own family, there's certain things that sort of fade away, but there's also certain memories that just stick with you. And for me, when my parents both educators in this district, moved to right behind the upper field of the school, I was in heaven, basically. I mean, that's my first memory. And my dad, wasn't allowed to play sports growing up. And he gave me every opportunity, from doing things like building pitching machines, to coaching JV lacrosse, to reading the rule book from the front to back before he coached JV lacrosse. And my mom was there with me every step of the way, from North Carolina to Maryland to you name it. But I can remember sitting in my kitchen and asking my mother if I could go down to football practice, because I could hear Mr. Miner and Mr. Manley and Mr. Nowhere coaching. And I just wanted to go down there and be a part of that at 8, 10, 12 years old all the time. And I can remember going down there and seeing athletes like Butch Mashesky and Preston Chapman and Pat Cahill performing at that level. And my father told me, when you go down there, you need to behave. And he said, Penn Yan football it's a tradition of excellence. And as a player, that's the way I approached it. From whistle to whistle, you respect the program, you play as hard as you can. I fell in love with lacrosse from day one. I mean, Mr. Vorse was close friends with my parents, Mr. and Mrs. Vorse, and even at 5 and 6 years old, I was so excited to go to his house or the Bartlett's, because I knew that Mr. Vorse and Mr. Durkee had lacrosse sticks in the garage. And I was thrilled to just be able to go over there and be a part of that whole thing. Some other memories, I remember one day I was at lacrosse practice. Mr. Burnett, stopped me after practice. I was, probably in 6th grade. And he said, "How you shooting?" And I said, "Well, I don't really know. I'm just shooting as hard as I can." And he said, "Here's where you need to shoot." And he picked up my stick and showed me. And that's what I worked on. That summer, Preston Chapman, Pat Cahill, and John Wixton invited me down in 6th grade to play with them during this, just summer pickup with Brian and some other athletes that I looked up to. And Brian, for me, even before he ever coached a game here, was like a brother. He was like my big brother. And he was a mentor. And when I needed a kick, he gave me the kick. When I needed an arm around me, he was there. He was there to encourage us. He was my generation's big brother before he coached a single game here. He made us all better, and when I started to play varsity, it was a little rocky. I remember my sophomore year, we had 2 defensemen, Greg Freeland at 6'5", and Pat Kukovic at 6'2" on his way to Syracuse. So most of my sophomore year, I think I probably spent half of my sophomore year on the ground in practice, and I thank them for teaching me how to compete day in and day out. And at a certain point, I was sick of being on the ground. And, going into my junior year, we didn't really know, as Brian said, where this was going to go or who we all could be. And, Coach Cleaner made us all believe in who we could be. He made us all have a vision of what was possible. And he motivated us to reach that. And he believed in who we were. And, I can remember my junior year, I'm walking down the hall, it's early March, and all of a sudden I see Coach Queener, and he looks at me and he's like, "Come here." and all I could think of is, how did he know that I failed the second math test? I'm like, Mrs. Stewart must have told him, and I hope my dad doesn't know. And so I walked up and he looks at me and he says, "Do you know who Matt Panetta is?" And I said, "Not really. I've heard his name." And he goes, "Well, he won a state championship at Elmont. He's the best player at Johns Hopkins right now." He goes, "Matt Panetta just scored 6 points against Syracuse the other night in the Dome." And I go, "Okay." And he goes, "Do you know how he did it?" So I'm thinking, behind the back, all these fancy moves and everything else. And I said, no, I don't know. And he looks at me right in the eye, and he said, he just ran. He just ran, and that's all he did. And then the next thing he said is, he said, how about, you know, you don't need to talk or say anything. How about you just run? And honestly, I mean, I went to college. I played for 3 coaches that were in the national, they're in the National Hall of Fame. The person that had the greatest impact on my life as a student, as an athlete, was Coach Cleaner. He made me believe that I could do something at the next level. And he told me exactly, in no uncertain terms, what I needed to do to get there. And the day